welcome you all. Thank you, Alana. Good morning to everyone. This is our sixth seminar under the Sustainable Management, Business Management in INVESTMED project. So I'm very pleased to present you this session that will be focused on social innovation on businesses. As you remember, we have been going through a journey of how different aspects can be integrated in the way that you are designing and thinking, shaping your business ideas. So today we have a wonderful panel full of three great experts that we are going to hear in the next 90 minutes. So let me just to mention that this session has been co-organized with the University of Lumsa, Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association, and our special partner, Beyond Group, in this occasion. So thank you, Lama and Raya, for the cooperation. Let me first introduce you the three panelists that we have today. So first we will have the participation of Nadine Asmin. Let me show you well. Asma, she's an impact leadership facilitator and coacher. Nadine, she's an expert on, she defines itself as a resilient entrepreneur, and she's has a very wide international experience, more than 20 years on business strategy and helping to build capacity on business modeling, scale up, innovation, and invest readiness. She has been leading for more than 9 years from Mowgli Mentoring across MENA and sub-Saharan African countries, and how to co-create nurturing and safe environment for individuals to grow in self-awareness. So she has a very interesting profile that I'm sure that all of you will enjoy. So please, Nadine, I will give you the floor for starting the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the introduction, and thank you for everyone to be here. I'm going to start by, since the topic that we were discussing today is key, it's about social innovation. And when we think about social innovation, there's no better way to start for me. Whenever I talk about social innovation, social impact, I always go back to Adam Smith, as his view kind of really reflects the key pillars of being, social with a social mindset, with social impact in mind. So it's just a small introduction thinking about impact economy as a concept. And in his first book, what he says, Adam Smith, is for those who like to read The Wealth of Nations, is he starts with the hypothesis that we're selfish. And when we're selfish, then we want to capture value. Capturing value meaning I want to gain money. And here we're activating needs. And these needs, usually it could be like the simplest example is the iPhone, right? We didn't need it, but now everyone, all smartphones, we need them. So it's the creation of product and services. And to capture profit, we need the company, and to control the market, and monopolize it. So that's the first hypothesis. And if I asked you if we were talking now, some would say we're selfish, some would say we're not. And this is what shows up in his second book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, whereby he's clarifying his view. He's saying we're not, of course, we need to be selfish in the sense of self-sustain, protect ourselves. It's like when you're in a flight. But we're also altruists. We care about others. And by caring about others in society, we're creating value, and here value for others, for people who needs it, for our community. And here, this is by tackling important societal environmental problem that we have among us, that we see around us. So when we talk about creating value and looking at the problem, for those who know Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel Prize winner. He's very well known as he's established the first microfinance, but it started as being an expert in economy, but being in an agricultural area where he saw poverty, he saw slavery, and he saw many women struggling with that. So what he did in brief, he created a fund whereby given in community to women where they were able to self-sustain, even, create new businesses in a safe environment, and hence they were able to educate their kids and so on. So this is an initiative that empowered and solved the problem and hopefully embedded in the system. So I'm saying this because we cannot be talking about social entrepreneurship, impact, social innovation without thinking about being altruistic and creating value. So when we're creating value, okay, we talk about social entrepreneurship, social innovation. I want to just go back. There's so many definitions. I just picked these two for you. So the nuance, social entrepreneurship aims at solving an important neglected problem. When I say important, meaning it's severe. Some people are dying. Some people are having heart problems. When you're using the lamps instead of electricity in tents with refugees, this is important. And it's, when I say important, it addresses, it affects a big number or big target, big group of people. And neglected, obviously, whereby it's not everyone tackling it, because if everyone's tackling it, why would I replicate? And so aiming at solving an important and neglected problem in the society through a sustainable solution. So it's not one activity I do once and that's it. So it's a sustainable solution that helps to solve the problem. The aim is solve, when I say problem, a societal, environmental problem. And by creating value. And we'll have many examples later on with the team. You're creating value. He created value, Muhammad Yunus, by they created value too. So those benefiting created value to their community. And how to do it? By mobilizing the resources you have. You cannot have a great innovation if you don't have the resources. I'm talking human, technical, and so on, resources around you to solve the problem. And when we talk about innovation, if you want, this initiative that you're thinking of, it becomes innovative when it proves to be working. We might have the greatest minds and great ideas and intention, but if not working, then how is it innovative? So there's so many about social innovation and, and innovation alone and so on. But I like this definition from Stanford is social innovation is the process of developing and deploying effective solution to challenging and often, and here we're talking systematic. So it's not like one place and it doesn't create a ripple effect. It's a systematic social environmental issues that we're addressing it to solve it. Because when we're solving, a social issue, right? And usually for those who have been in my trainings, we go to the problem tree, going to the roots of the problem to solve it and then create a system change. So this is briefly about the definition in brief, but I want to also clarify, there is some myth about when we talk about, by the way, I'm interchanging impact economy and these terms just for simplicity. So I just want to also clarify, it's the myth, meaning what is not, what it's not only saying, oh, I'm giving money or engaging disadvantaged people. It's not about charity. It's not about being an activist, a social activist. It's not about CSR, where we're taking 1% of a revenue of a private sector and planting a tree. It's not having also the two extremes, Mother Teresa with Richard Branson. So it's not being what we're not or what the impossible. Also to clarify, when we're, especially maybe we understand in your startup phase, depending on when are you on ideation or not, but I want to clarify what we define. We have different countries in the room. So depending on the legal framework, you would be a social enterprise or not, a nonprofit or private enterprise. The important is not as much the legal framework because the country maybe don't have it or doesn't have it well implemented yet. The important thing is what makes you a social initiative. It's about first the social purpose, why you're doing it. It's who is benefiting, who is targeted, because, and also it's not about being shareholder, where the shareholder, you need to give them dividends and profit. You're more here accountable for your stakeholder and those struggling or affected or affecting the problem, the societal environmental problem. So when we're talking about social impact here, okay, on the legal aspect, it depends on what exists in your country that works best to serve your purpose. And also here, just to keep in mind, as you know, initiatives that you have innovation, you want to create social impact, there are different phases, and each phase on your life cycle, in your life cycle, okay, you have different needs, you have different development needs. So, and when we talk about entrepreneur, it could be being entrepreneur for the first 3-5 years, we still, let's say, single-led or a couple of people supporting. Here we're looking for resources, we're looking to prototype, make sure our solution, and here when I say solution, is not the product or service alone, but it's the whole business social solution that you're bringing in. So to test it. So here you need the resources to do it. And to validate it. When you move a bit further, you establish your legal form and you started to sell your service, product, service, you started to implement. Here it's about codifying, making your model more sustainable, mobilizing more resources, having more activity. Moving forward, when you're more an institution, it's bigger. This is where processes, internal processes are important, resources, systems, and partnership in order to scale and impact further. I just wanted to highlight these different phases because in each you have different needs as social innovators. In brief, of course, social innovation by itself, it creates, economic growth. It's important. You're creating product and service, increase productivity, lowering cost, improving the quality of life for sure, reducing waste, and definitely exploring new possibilities. And really, more and more people are interested, are more driven, purpose-driven, and this makes us more creative. What I just want to say when we're talking about innovation, it's, if you want to think of it as a space, is not only the product or the invention or the service you're creating, it's the solution that comes with it, the novelty that it's new, it's creating value, it's optimizing efficiency and so on. All of this, when they meet, we're talking about innovation. There are two categories of innovation, and here, keep in mind, it could be something evolutionary, so it's something exists and evolving, like an existing solution, but you're evolving, building on it, or revolutionary, when we talk about disruption. If we had more time, I would have shared a few examples. I will just share this one. Keep in mind, when we're talking about dimension of innovation, and especially in social innovation, keep in mind is not the product and services, it's the strategy. It's the culture that is innovative, the values that you share, the cycle you're working on. So it's a complete, there are different factors, what I want to highlight, that makes you a social innovator. So this is in brief, just to define the framework. I want to talk about innovation, social innovation. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share, Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. I think it's a very good for the introduction, as you were saying, how we can identify the scope of the topic. So later we will come back to you, and if you want to share more about these slides, we will be pleased. Okay, so let me introduce you our second. Thank you, Nadine. Our second panelist is Tamara Zakaria. She's from Lebanon, and she's innovation specialist at UNICEF in the Stockholm office. So she, I have yeah, sorry, I was having here a bit, okay. So Tamara, she's an expert also in introducing here. on developing creative capacity also for startups. She has founded a startup ecosystem think tank and very focused on MENA-based governments in this case, and how to support them and to drive and build a national innovation ecosystems. She's also launching a regional first corporate accelerator through the Lebanese Startup Ecosystem Roadmap. And she also founded a social enterprise, HRMB project. And well, her background is economics from American University of Beirut. And she's also a master in entrepreneurship and innovation from ESADE Business School. I think she has a wonderful experience that I hope that we enjoy to know. As we were saying, we will first have these first impressions about definition about the experiences they have, and then we will come back with an open discussion with among the three of us. Tamara, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I will be sharing my screen. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to be able to present. I will share my screen. Is it fine? Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, that's perfect. If you can put it full screen, would be great. Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so to give you a bit of background and to relate my experience maybe to your work and to the session, I've chosen two specific experiences from the past few years in my professional journey to kind of speak to. One is an initiative by UNICEF. It's called Generation Unlimited, and it's a global initiative where we launched call for applications for social entrepreneurs from over 60 countries. And they had to be between ages of 16 and 24. So the target audience was quite young, but yeah, I mean, the results that came back were incredible in terms of innovation and how young people were thinking of social enterprises. So that's one. So looking at social enterprises at the very, very early idea stage in over 60 countries, and then one that's focused on Lebanon specifically, which some of you might know is called GIL, Generation of Innovation Leaders. It's a program that has been running in Lebanon now for 5 years almost, and also powered by UNICEF with a bunch of other fantastic partners. And we've worked with more than 4,000 social entrepreneurs over the course of these 5 years. And when I say worked, it varies in terms of we've provided coaching, mentorship, other types of support to these entrepreneurs. And I'll just show you a few examples of these entrepreneurs and speak to. So what I'd like to do during this brief session is really from these two experiences. So one, a lot of countries, and two, a lot of entrepreneurs in one country, the data that cuts across them is quite consistent in terms of what you should do and you shouldn't do as a social entrepreneur. So I'd like to share that experience with you and hoping that will help you in your journey. So speaking about a few of the GIL enterprises that were part of the GIL program at one point or another, and focusing on the green economy, social enterprises. I'm going to give you a few examples from Lebanon. So BioWaste is a startup led by two young women based in Tripoli, and they developed a fully automated machine that transforms organic waste into gas and organic fertilizers for agricultural use. Their idea to build this project came from realizing that 48% of the content of a landfill in Tripoli was organic waste. Can you imagine how much waste that was? Their next goal is to have bio-waste systems in restaurants all over Lebanon. So this is a very inspiring story of two women in Tripoli in Lebanon. The next story is also from Lebanon. All of these projects received funding and support. Hydrogreen is creating more efficient ways to grow crops. Funding cultivable land might be a challenge in some parts in Lebanon, and the higher costs of traditional agriculture make it less competitive in some markets. The young entrepreneurs of the startup have developed methods capable of reducing water waste by 90% and completely avoid the use of pesticides, which is so important given the global environmental efforts for a greener world. As a result, they can cleanly cultivate a large amount of high quality produce in small spaces all year round, and they have multiple selling points across the country. They're doing very well too. And finally, this is the third example, and they are called eFarm. It's a startup founded by 4 university friends who have developed a system that transforms solid waste from fish tanks. It's very specific, and I would have never thought of it, to be honest, into natural fertilizers, and uses the tank water for growing crops and then returns the water to the fish tanks after being naturally filtered. With the cycle, they have been able to avoid harmful biological waste and produce 100% bio vegetables without soil. So this is an example of the type of enterprises that that can be created in the green economy with not too much capital and with a very, very difficult backdrop, which is the economy of Lebanon. These have been created in the past year and a half. They haven't in the past 2 years to year, so they haven't been along earlier. They haven't been before the crisis. So these are some very human examples of the type of entrepreneurs I have the honor to work with, and just looking at all the data in terms of why they stop and why they continue, and looking at why some succeed and why some don't. Some common threads are here, and I've summarized them in the do's. So do choose your team wisely, and this may be very obvious, but I cannot emphasize on how important this one is, because the main reason why most of the enterprises and groups that we work with fall apart is because the team wasn't chosen wisely. There was not chemistry. There were issues early on that weren't addressed. They were chosen based on friendship and not on skill sets. Personalities didn't mix, and that was something that wasn't addressed early on. So choose your team really wisely. Second, make the mindset shift. You are asking someone to pay for your service. Therefore, you cannot think of or treat your target audience as though they were beneficiaries. So this is a really important one in social enterprises. If doing social work is something, and then launching a social enterprise is something else. You're no longer just handing something out as you would in a pure social setting. You're also running a business, and therefore whatever you're asking someone to pay for something, and therefore it has to be up to standard. So there's a move away from someone is just benefiting you, because you're also benefiting from it. So the relationship's a bit different. The do's: enter as many competitions, workshops, support programs, similar to what you're doing over here. Just do as many of those as possible. Pitch as often as possible, even if it's to your 10-year-old niece. So even a 10-year-old will give you good feedback about your idea. Because a 10-year-old, if a 10-year-old can't understand your idea, it means you're not doing a great job in communicating what it is, and you need to simplify. So really take any opportunity to pitch and receive feedback. You don't want to be the Gollum entrepreneur. I don't know if anyone here is a Lord of the Rings fan, but the very protective, you don't want to be that. You want to be as open as possible. And fourthly is learn how to measure your impact early on. And this is, I cannot stress how overlooked this is. People just forget to measure their impact, how they're impacting communities and lives, and what that means, and what the dollar value of that is. Because if you are serious about that journey, people will be asking for that, including potential partners, potential investors, potential staff. So yeah, do that from the very start. The don'ts, and there are many, but over here, I'll stick with these three. Do not start your journey thinking it's going to be easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's more like hiking through the Himalayas. It is not easy at all. And I don't say this to discourage you. I say this so that when you do hit your first wall, you don't give up, because there are going to be a lot of walls to hit, and you have to have the mental resilience to be able to handle those walls. And this is something we see with a lot of our programs. The first wall they hit, they just want to run. And that's a large reason of why these enterprises stop. And the successful ones are the ones that actually continue beyond those first 10 walls. Don't cling too tightly to your idea. Don't. It will change. But do hold on to your motivation and drive to solve the problem. That is what you should stick to. How you're solving it should move and flow with the information that you're receiving as you go through this journey. If you try to solve it in one way and it doesn't work, take that feedback and try to solve it another way. The drive to solve it should be what's consistent, not the idea. The idea is unimportant. And don't try to do it yourself. And of course, try to do it yourself, but don't try to do everything yourself. Onboard the right people, partner with the right people. If someone else is doing a part of your business model better, maybe it's better to partner with them than to try to reinvent the wheel. So don't try to do everything by yourself. That's something. And finally, given the demographics that everyone here is from, and the context that this program is based in, we're generally all looking at difficult times in one way or another. But again, don't let that discourage you, because difficult times signal opportunity. And one piece of advice, especially from Lebanon and for entrepreneurs in Lebanon and in similar contexts, is try to solve challenges that are big enough to be meaningful. And this is kind of echoing what Nadine said earlier. But make sure to make sure the solutions don't rely on unreliable infrastructure conditions. To give you an example, in Lebanon, there's a clear market gap in manufacturing, in bottled, in glass manufacturing. So a lot of our exports in Lebanon, let's say the wine industry, for example, or other industries where there's an opportunity to export goods, the cost is too high in many cases because we import the glass. And you would think, why don't we have a glass manufacturing industry? Well, it requires a lot of electricity and uninterrupted electricity. So is there a way to solve this without relying on uninterrupted electricity? So there are a lot of market gaps because of prices. And there are a lot of ways to solve them, like these three entrepreneurs have done, by circling around infrastructure, because infrastructure is dependent on government, and unfortunately, that requires a lot of time and the will to fix, which potentially doesn't exist right now. So your will to work around these has to be stronger. The second point, in crisis, find a mentor, someone who's done this and who you can relate to. It's important to find a mentor from your community who can understand you, who speaks your language, who understands your challenges. In difficult times, people come together and want to help each other. So benefit from that. People want to give back, especially someone who's done this and is successful. And Nadine can definitely speak to this more with her work in the Mowgli network, but crisis is a great time to ask for help. And finally, and this is just, if you're ever looking for some inspiration, and this is kind of independent of difficult times, but it's a great movie if you're looking for some inspiration. It's on Netflix, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and it's about this it's a true story, and it's about this 13-year-old boy who used wind to provide electricity to his village and save it from famine. So that's it on my end. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm looking forward to the Q&A session, and then handing back over to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. I think that you have been very precise on and very interesting points that you highlight. not only the examples at the beginning, but also this part of what to do and what to avoid. I mean, to not make those mistakes. So we will come back to you. So I will give the floor for our next panelist. He's Christian Bevacqua. He's a regional project coordinator at Oxfam, Italy. And he's developing a very interesting social projects related especially on different countries. So she has a very wide experience on microfinance. He's an expert on microfinance, I will say. And he has been working at Oxfam and Italian Cooperation in Morocco, Niger, Senegal, and also in a consulting company in Morocco and a rating agency in Kenya and Rwanda. So also he has experience on microfinance investment in Italy, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, and Nepal. He's also dedicated for these projects at Oxfam, basically on programs dedicated to funding and promoting entrepreneurship. So, Christian, I give you the floor so you can.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Try to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Yes. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, if you can put it full screen, would be great.
Yeah, I did it. You should see it as
no, no,
no?
we do not.
For me, it's now in full screen.
I don't know if the rest. I just see.
Christian, can you stop presenting and present again?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's try again. Okay, and now. What about now?
No, we do.
No.
No.
Maybe you can zoom in. So stop the slideshow from your side and just zoom your screen if possible.
Yes. Sorry, yeah.
Don't worry. Sometimes this happens, but we have time.
I don't know how. Okay. What about now?
No, it doesn't. But if you want,
yeah,
if you want to share it by the chat, then I can share it if you want.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening because I usually share the screen and it usually works. But apparently, I can send it to you by email.
Yes. If you want to start presenting what it is about and I will share it.
Yeah, just a second that I send the email. And
so if you can stop sharing the screen, Christian, please. Okay.
Okay.
So just to mention that we have around 18 participants. So this is so if you have any question that you may have, please put it on the questions and answers, and then later we will come back through those questions and begin the discussion among the panel.
Good.
Magnetic.
So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can start, Cynthia. What do you think?
Okay. Let me see.
Uh,
No, if you can introduce a bit about what you are
yeah.
doing right now.
Okay, perfect. So, so first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here and say the experience that we are doing with this interesting project, which is called the MEDUP. Indeed, today I will share with you some, information, data coming from the project. But I would like also to share, as Tamara already did, some concrete examples of the social entrepreneurs indeed we are supporting within the program in Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and even other countries. So MEDUP is a project that started in March 2018. Is led by Oxfam, but together with many other partners that are coming from Europe, but also from Southern Mediterranean countries. So it's a wide consortium, which brings indeed diversified and complementary expertise. Because indeed to work on social entrepreneurship, we realized as Oxfam the need to have indeed good allies that indeed were able to bring technical expertise to know very well the context of intervention, the social entrepreneurship issues, etc., in order to be effective in our action. So if you can move to the next slide, Cynthia, please. So it's a 4-year project, mainly co-funded by the European Commission. And what is interesting in this project is that we are trying to indeed promote a kind of multi-level approach by tackling in parallel at the same time different indeed actors and different activities. So we in the narrative behind MEDUP is indeed around reinforcing social entrepreneurship ecosystem if we really want to be effective. And so trying to address the challenges that indeed exist at a micro, meso, and macro level. The micro level mainly is indeed, guys, your level. I mean, the level of the entrepreneurs. So who really are involved in, promoting projects. While the meso level, as you might understand, is mainly regarding the service providers, so the actors who deliver services to the social entrepreneurs. Service providers, I refer mainly to incubator, accelerators, training centers, but also financial intermediaries, because services are also financial services that indeed are very needed by the entrepreneurs. And then we also address the so-called macro level, which is indeed the level of the decision-making people, of the ministries, the institutions. So all is related with regulatory frameworks, institutional frameworks. So all the rules that indeed are set in the different countries and that affect the operation of the social entrepreneurs. So with MEDUP, we are trying to have this ecosystem approach, which is interesting. I think also based on my previous experience, I can say that it's quite interesting project, because indeed we have all these interlocutors at the same time, and we try to bring them towards the same direction, which is having favorable conditions for social entrepreneurs to grow, to operate, to scale up. So, of course, the actions that we are running along these 3 levels are very different. But for you to know, I'm trying to concentrate especially on the micro level. We have launched indeed a call for projects in 2019. We received like more than 700 applications from people like you who had indeed project ideas that they wanted to receive funds for the implementation. And so we selected, after a long selection process, we selected at the end 64 social entrepreneurs in the 6 countries. Indeed, MEDAP, I forgot to mention that indeed is implemented in Morocco, Tunisia, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, and Palestine. And so we have now these 64, let's say, promising social entrepreneurs that indeed run different kind of activities that I will be mentioning just later on. So some key words of the project is this cross-country perspective. We are learning a lot by putting together actors, but also comparing challenges, opportunities that are coming from the 6 countries where we work. We implement a unique action plan, but in 6 different geographical contexts. So we have this added value of having this kind of transversal overview of the sector. So after 4 years of implementation, we learned we learned a lot about the sector. We know what are the needs, and so how to also move forward. So another key word, of course, I already mentioned this, is ecosystem, but I want to focus on mutual learning, which is linked to this cross-country perspective, because indeed we have a lot of partners, and with these partners from Europe and from the Southern Mediterranean countries, we are trying to really put working processes that are based on participation, or on sharing, or on comparing methodologies, ways of seeing and tackling problems. So I think it's a project in which the partnerships is very rich. There is a very, very good spirit between partners, and so there is a kind of the partners very are like payers. They really are sharing their views without imposing anything, but really with this perspective of mutually learning from each other. And then we are trying to pilot, to experiment, because indeed we are supporting projects that are, by definition, as also Nadine said at the beginning, are trying to really find out innovative ways to solve old problems. So the problems are very well known, but the solutions, the entrepreneurial solutions we are trying to support are quite innovative. And so there is a large space for experimenting, piloting, innovating. And then we want to showcase. So the issue of MEDAP is also that with the entrepreneurs we are supporting, then we have, especially in this last year of project, we are trying to showcase that, so to disseminate their example, to showcase that their business model can work. So generating social impact while being sustainable from a financial and economic point of view can work. And so we want to show this also to other young people through communication, information campaigns that we are running in the countries, just to inform people that indeed can work. And so they can even embark themselves in similar projects, because indeed if they set everything well, they can definitely find a market and really put in place impactful projects. So then the last point here is social entrepreneurs indeed are, as already said by my colleagues, people who try really to solve problems with solutions that are sustainable, with technical entrepreneurial solutions that are sustainable. Please, Nadine, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah, just very quickly, we learned already something now from the project. And for instance, there is an issue with the policy frameworks, with the regulatory frameworks in the country when it comes to social entrepreneurship. Indeed, there is no specific regulatory framework in any country except for Tunisia, where there is a new law promoted in June 2020, but we are still waiting for the implementing decrees of that law. So the law is still a theoretical concept. So while waiting for the legal framework being more structured, we think it's very important to focus on the business models. So without looking at, disregarding the legal status of the entrepreneur, the enterprises that can be associations, foundations, NGOs, cooperatives, let's focus on supporting the business ideas that these people, these actors, cooperative, foundation, association, private companies promote. So if they promote projects that are sustainable, so solid from a business plan point of view, and they also solve a social problem, so let's focus on that, on these actors, rather than waiting for a regulatory frameworks that state clearly who is an entrepreneur. So in this way, we can really try to really support also the born of these impactful projects. And then we can, another learning is that we can really promote a positive and a policy framework if we are able to bring the voice of the social entrepreneurs to the institutions, to the ministries, through advocacy campaigns, for instance, that we usually organize. So we need to bring evidence. We need to collect data of the impact of the social entrepreneurship sector to solve job creation problems, to solve environmental problems, etc. And if we collect this data in a meaningful way, perhaps we can send strong messages to the policy makers, and that at the end can really regulate the sector properly. Then, of course, we realized, which is evident, the fact that to grow social entrepreneurs, they really need tailored technical and financial support. They really need to be trained, to receive mentoring, coaching activities, because indeed they need to navigate into a journey which is where you find a lot of surprises. So they need some guide, and they need funds, of course. With the project, we just gave some grants, but indeed the needs, the financial needs of the entrepreneurs are even more complex. So they need more complex financial products. So that's why with MedUp we are trying to also connect with financial institutions and try to push them towards developing financial products that are more tailored to the needs of the social entrepreneurs, which is the challenge indeed. And then we also are trying to attract external investors. And how we are trying to do so? By reinforcing the capacity of the social entrepreneurs to track their impact, their performance, to develop sound reports, because at the end you are asked to not only to implement properly your business, but also to really report on your business properly. And in this way, you can really also attract investors that really look at financial reports, but also documents around your impact, your capacity to generate impact. Please, Cynthia, if you can move on with the slides. Again, you can go to the next slide, please. So we go a little bit faster. Let's focus on the social entrepreneurs we are supporting. I just brought 3 examples. They work mainly on sectors that have been already mentioned: local waste, inclusion of people with disabilities, climate change warning systems, and they face a lot of challenges, that are even common to them, like sometimes weak management skills. They don't have easy access to information around the market. They need capital, funds, and they struggle to find tailored support services. Cynthia, if you can move ahead. Yeah. So here we have the first example that I just extracted from the 64 social enterprises we support is called Water Wheelies in Egypt. I tried to structure this slide in a way that highlights the social challenge the entrepreneur wants to solve, how he or she wants to solve the problem, and what's the objective. And then you can see the final line of this, the final point of this slide, some tips from the entrepreneurs themselves, because we collected this from them. So in Water Wheel wants to solve a problem, which is the scarcity of water in Egypt. And how they want to solve this problem? By producing and distributing cost-efficient ceramic water filters made from a mixture of natural materials that can kill indeed bacteria and viruses in water. This, in principle, in theory, is a very simple, innovative solution, but indeed a very impactful one. Indeed, more than 1,000 filters have been distributed, and so more than 5,000 people have benefited of these filters. So they can access to clean water and prevent a lot of disease. So Mohammed here, who is the entrepreneur manager of this enterprise, suggests, has a recommendation. So he says, empowering the local community as well as targeting the bottom of the pyramid by offering cost-efficient and sustainable solutions. So for him, it's very, very important to refer to the local community when it comes to finding cost-efficient solutions for that have impact on people. So he really relies a lot of, creating synergies with the local communities, perhaps because indeed to sell also these filters, he needed to sensitize people of the local community around the problem and around, the proposed solution. So he found that having this link with the local community was a winning factor. Please go ahead with the other example from Lebanon, mother's cooking. The problem here is, the social problem is the bad nutritional habits of young people that don't have time to cook, and the fact that there are a lot of moms at home that don't have any income while they do a lot of work. So the business solution Mother's Cooking is proposing is giving the moms the opportunity to earn incomes by preparing foods and selling this food to people of the neighborhoods, especially to young people. They use a platform, an online platform. You can even check. And this is very, again, quite kind of simple but impactful idea that works quite well. And again, here Rudy, who is the entrepreneur, the woman leading the enterprise, say that success is to create a product of value. Even Nadine before mentioned this important term, value, that can make a great impact, be profitable and sustainable at the same time. So when you think about your business, think the value your business will create from different angles. And if there is a value for the communities, for the target you want to address your business, then you can definitely work on it, because you have chances to be successful. Let's move to the third and last example, Scienza from Tunisia. Here, the social challenge is the fact that scientific contents, so educational content for children, especially for the most vulnerable ones, are not very often are not available. So here, this social enterprise created kind of playful science content, very easy to, user-friendly, that can be easily accessible, to really stimulate the scientific curiosity of people, of young, very young children indeed, especially coming from vulnerable settings. So here they provide indeed workshops. The social enterprise provide workshops and sell these educational games at a good price, which is at the same time sustainable for the social enterprise. Here, the tip is being mindful of the impact we make on others, focus on innovation, have a marketing strategy. Yeah, here Latifa added beyond the poetry, added a very concrete and technical element, which is having a marketing strategy. Having a marketing strategy is very important because at least you know, first of all, you know well your market, and you know what are the means you have to use to indeed enter into the market, to sell, to offer your service, to also create alliances with other actors, with other players of your territory, of your ecosystem. And so it's a very important, also a very important factor, having a marketing strategy. Let's move to the last slide. I don't know if we are out of time, but then I wanted just to highlight a few learnings again from MEDAP from a project point of view. So we are wondering whether international cooperation at the end can play a role to promote social entrepreneurship, and we are trying to give some responses to this question. And indeed, we definitely think that there is a space for the international cooperation, especially when it comes to breaking the silos that exist in the social entrepreneurship ecosystem. So projects like MEDAP can have the force to indeed break those silos and creating synergies, put people working in social entrepreneurship at different levels working together, because indeed only projects can do that, because they can have the power indeed to combine different experts, different actors, and to put together again stakeholders from different fields. So we think this is very important, breaking the silos that exist and create connections. Then, of course, if we create a solid ecosystem, then immediately public and private resources can come. Because indeed the risk that is perceived from the sector, from the ecosystem, is lower, and so a lot of new actors can come and put funds, put expertise, put energies into the sector. And then the third point is already said, more or less. And so just the last point regarding the profile of the social entrepreneur. You must have indeed good skills, management skills, but also you have to have the right attitude. So the motivation also, Tamara before mentioned these elements. Even if your ideas can change, you face a lot of problems, but you keep your motivation high, because indeed that's what you really need to move on. And then, the ability from a more technical point of view, you must be able to really attentively read your market, your context of intervention, to identify the needs that you want to satisfy, and to propose the right technical solution you want to propose as a solution indeed for that need. Having partnership is key, so please be always aware of who is around you and who can be your ally in implementing your project. And please also try to track your performance, your impact, because you need data. You need to show that you know what you are doing and you can report on it. Yeah, that's more or less what I wanted to say. So thanks a lot, and looking forward to hearing from you with your questions.
Thank you very much, Christian. I think it's quite interesting. Now I cannot share my screen. Just a second. Okay, so I will invite to Tamara and Nadine to open their cameras, if you can. Okay. Perfect. So we have a few questions. Thank you very much, Christian. I think it's quite interesting the way that you present the three cases, like first defining which is the social challenge that each one of them they're going to focus, then you build the strategy of the project around that. So I think it's very good. I was taking some notes, but I wanted first to read the questions that our colleagues put on the questions and answers. So Najet Ben Mabrouk, she says she has a question for Tamara, and it's how, as a green business, she says, I can find more exchange or partnership with your great initiative. And well, she also wants to congratulate and give you good luck for your intervention. Then Rim Nazar, okay, no, she was basically about the age, how many are, yes, she was asking, I guess, for the aging of the initiatives. Yeah. Okay. So.
Could I jump in?
Yes, yes, please, Tamara.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Najat, for the question and for your kind words. I can share contact info of someone with you if you want to get in touch and learn more about the program. Yes, and yeah, to learn more about the green businesses and if there's a potential for partnership, I can definitely share that info. So yeah, and I'll share some links about Gilles as well.
Exactly. If you have some link to others, maybe you can share it on the chat, Tamara. Okay, then we have another one about the okay, so it's Lama Sacher. She was asking, should an entrepreneur should be worried about someone stealing his idea, his or her idea, and if the case of sharing to a lot of people this first idea. So what is the balance between working on the business versus the time that we should put on competitions or events? This takes a lot of time, and sometimes we feel like we are spending most of our time preparing for these competitions, programs, than focusing on growing the business. Yes, because I think this, Tamara, you were commenting, no, to present. So this is also for you.
Right, thank you, Cynthia. And the question is from
Lama.
Lama. So when you're first starting, what really differentiates you is how you implement. So your idea is really, unless it's something that you're going to potentially patent and it's in the scientific industry and it's years and years of research. So this exercise that I like to run when I give workshops about creativity is I ask someone, as I ask for a problem, I put a problem out there to the group and ask them to solve it with the first idea that comes to their mind. And I ask everyone to fold the piece of paper and put it in a bowl in the beginning, in the front of the room. And then I randomly choose 5 and I read them out. And you won't be too surprised when I say that most of the times, 3 to 4 out of the 5 are exactly the same. And most of what's in the bowl is the same idea. Just to say that ideas very rarely are transformational. I mean, you can have a great idea, but if you don't execute it and get it to the point where it's exceptional, I mean, Steve Jobs wasn't the first person to think about a computer. Jeff Bezos wasn't the first person to think about selling books, and many have tried online, but it's in how you execute. And you execute by connecting with the right people, trying and trying and trying and getting feedback. And you will never reach that if you don't share. So I definitely, if you want to get to a point where you have something worth protecting, you need to be open in the beginning, because in the beginning there is not much value. It's when you build something meaningful, then it's worth protecting with legal and patents and. But in the beginning, there's really not too much. That's my view. I don't know if fellow panelists have another view.
Yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
And it reminds me, I love that with the example you mentioned, Tamara. There's also a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I love it because it says the idea is everywhere. It's like floating, coming to your home, but who nurtures it makes a difference. Who, like you said, Tamara, implements it. And it's not about the ego. Like, it's not about hiding insecurities. And I was lately training and coaching 3 competing teams, and they were hiding. One, and it's funny because the one hiding, there was a disconnect of values. So, of course, having a nurturing, trusting environment to share values so they can open up to each other and discuss their ideas, because they are being vulnerable, right? You are being vulnerable to each other. But if you really care, we go back to the problem, societal problem you care about. It doesn't matter who's doing what, but thinking, how can we collaborate, complement each other to solve it, rather than compete on a product that is existing or similar.
Absolutely. Christian, do you want to add something about this?
I just echo my colleagues. Yeah, I mean, they said everything.
Okay, so I link it to this because you both, the 3 of you, but especially Nadine and Tamara, make this point about the team, no? How to choose properly a team, how to, I mean, to who you partner. And this is related, I was thinking with this last question. So, because it's also a matter of building trust and how to build, Nadine expressed pretty well the way of the working, how you build an evolutionary innovation or revolutionary, you know? So if you evolve, so this forms part of a way of working at the same time. I mean, one thing is to define the focus, this societal challenge approach. I think that's perfect. But then how do you, the 3 of you, would you think that would be like, he asked, but according to your experience, how to build properly these teams, how to see the good partner. I don't know who wants to start. Christian, first you.
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, no, a good question. So from the experience we are having with MedUp, indeed, I noticed also when we assessed the hundreds of applications we received, we looked quite carefully to the aspect related to the team that was, you know, affected to the project. And usually we found like the people who really launched the idea, so let's say the 1-2 persons in general that were really, you know, having the idea, who really founded the project. And then these people who also had, of course, technical expertise, usually are in the position of, you know, identifying the technical people who indeed are then deployed at field level to indeed implement the project. So I think when it comes to a team, you need the visionary people who, of course, own the vision of the project. Usually we have this, so the founder who has the idea. And these visionary people are usually indeed together with people that, from a technical point of view, know very well the activity. For instance, when it comes to the filters, who really produce this filter, who is really able to make a mixture of you know, natural materials to produce this. So it's a combination again of vision, strategy, attitudes, and then a strong technical expertise. We have just small teams. From our experience, we are talking about social enterprises run by 2 to 10 people, 15 people, are very small. But indeed, again, it's a last word that I want to share is that it's very important to start from a small team, and then in parallel with your growth, try to indeed adjust your management team. So not focusing on having immediately like 50 people working with you, which is by definition unsustainable, but let's really set your management team according to your development stage, to your capacity to also maintain this team.
Very good.
Maybe, Cynthia, because it's also part of under MedUp, I could add something on what Christian was saying.
Yes, please.
Currently, we're doing under MedUp also is, and I was part of designing the journey. It's about collaboration for social justice, and to do so, we're bringing teams that didn't know each other. So first there is fear or distance. Well, the first thing that comes to nurture it is having a safe environment for people to open up, and what the starting point where we started is the purpose. So what is a common purpose that we care about beyond the I, but more the we? Of course, taking into account there was the SDGs and clusters and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But firstly, having common goal or understanding their drives, also their passion. Complementarity of the team. They don't have to be like Tamara and Christian said earlier. They don't have to have all the skills today. They can, especially when starting small, they can contract. They can get resources outside. The core should be there, and it's a life thing. Not to assume it. So especially when you talk about innovation, don't take it for granted that we have a shared purpose or the values. So how I live my values every day and how this is translated in creating a solution. And this, of course, adding to what Christian said, is a process and so on, including my relation and collaboration. Collaboration is key. You cannot innovate. You cannot create a social change if you're not collaborating outside. And again, that reflects who you are and your values and your purpose and the impact you want to create.
Thank you, Nadine. Tamara, do you want to add something? Okay, so the next, okay, we have another question, just because I have it here. It's about the case that you explained, Christian. In the case of Egypt, it's selling to the bottom of the pyramids, the water filters, if you work on the awareness and understanding the need of clean water.
Yeah, indeed, as I mentioned, thanks for the question, first of all. Even the tip that the social entrepreneurs shared was not related to this capacity to create connection with the local community, because indeed he realized that indeed was very important for the success of his initiative to have the community on board, to have the community understanding the need of accessing to that innovative solution. And so definitely, yes, they are running in parallel with the activities of selling filters. They are running awareness information campaigns at very local level. First, to sensitize about the importance of having clean water. Also the risks. They also include in the campaigns the risk related to instead drinking water that is not clean, because people are not very often are not aware of this. And so they, as a result of this campaign, they also propose the solution. So they also inform the semi, and so they do some marketing at the same time. So the boundary between informing, sensitizing, and then also proposing your solution is quite is a bit blurry. So, but definitely they understood that that's the way to move on. Otherwise, they couldn't have any place in the market if they don't make people aware of the needs for that solution. Yeah,
exactly, the creation of value.
The creation of value.
Exactly. I think the three of you, you also comment about measure your impact, how to not forget. Tamara was very emphatic about not lose the time and dedicate the time to measure, because this, of course, this is something that also has to be systemic, as Nadine was highlighting. I mean, being innovative, but then also to be sustainable on your process, no? That not only look on the motivation, but also on the practice that you have of your initiative. So I just wanted, if you have key indicators that you will suggest, again, regarding to the cases that you have follow, coach, which would you recommend as a key indicators to follow from the starting? Or how to measure this impact, from your opinion? Tamara.
Thank you. I think that the easy one is the qualitative, the quantitative. I think what's more difficult, more meaningful, and more nuanced is the quantitative. And it really depends on what area your social impact is in. But I think for each industry, there are precedents that you can look at, and I would look at those. What are social enterprises similar to me? What are they measuring? I would get in touch with them, and I would really try to learn from them. In this industry, there is, I like to call them vanity metrics. Mm-hmm. So they do appease a lot of people, and that's one thing. You need those vanity metrics, I think, for a lot of reasons in communication and onboarding big partners and things like that, and driving investment. But I think also you need to be very real about your genuine impact, and that's slightly more difficult.
Okay, Nadine, what do you suggest? Thank you, Tamara.
I mean, definitely adding to what Tamara mentioned, first, for those who like to go in depth for the measurements, there is the SDG measurement, there's a toolkit, there's some, for every cluster for SDG, it gives you some guidelines, but this is not enough, because like you said, Tamara, there's vanity, but then on the ground, it's difficult, it's time consuming, it needs resources and so on. But it could be quite simple, but it needs to start from the beginning, right? Involving stakeholder in designing it, also aligning with your purpose and strategy, and across board, and compare with the facts and counterfactual and so on. So it's a process, but could be refined gradually, not to overcomplicate it, but at least have the priority. And honestly, going back to the simple question, why, what, how, and how much? Mm-hmm. And then if there are risks, how to mitigate. If you have these questions in mind, and keep the team involved and stakeholder, gradually it gets refined.
Okay, yes, and also about this feedback, no, a strategic feedback from a mentor, or for looking into other examples that can also guide you on the next steps. Very good. So my last question, I wanted to also have a round of comments, because I think that we have been talking about in the core about the project, but then on the context, these the political incidents that we can have, or as it was mentioned, a crisis, whatever, but also from the legal or regulatory point of view. Do you think it would be from any kind of legal a lack, or something that we could advance on in terms of incentives? Because we normally see that we have, of course, the startups that they can go and through investors to have some support, but at the same time, if we could also advance from the regulatory point of view and have some policies that help also to enable these kind of ecosystems, no, that can also ensure, I mean, SDGs is a way because local authorities are aware that they have to achieve this. So they have also this challenge to, so you complement. So just from your point of view, which if you think that could be good to integrate more some or fiscal policies or incentives from the regulatory point of view, the framework.
So I can share my thoughts on that. So definitely, yes, we have a role to play. As I also mentioned during the presentation, I think an effective way to indeed to involve policymakers and to make them, active in the sense that they create enabling environment. So an effective way is to bring the evidence of from the sector. So if we are able, as I said before, if we are able to collect data, so that's why, as we mentioned before, it's important to measure, our work, our impact. So if we collect those data and we are, for instance, I give a concrete example, we are able to showcase, to demonstrate to the policymakers that if they invest, for instance, they facilitate, from a fiscal point of view, the operation of a social business. At the end, from a welfare point of view, there will be a reduction in terms of public budget invested to create, for instance, jobs or to prevent environmental problems. So, we need to really show the evidence of a win-win situation. It's not just a favor that we expect from the policymakers for social entrepreneurs to have good laws, but it's just, a need because we all win. And then the last thing that I want to say about that is, again, because of the complexity of the sector definition, social entrepreneurship is still misunderstood as a concept. So perhaps it will take a long time to have a proper regulatory framework. So while waiting for these regulatory frameworks, let's work with the so-called secondary regulations that exist in each country, because we have space within these secondary laws to work and to innovate. It's not because there is a specific law we cannot innovate. Because if we wait to have the specific law, perhaps we waste time. So let's try to
Beyond.
find
Let's go beyond.
Exactly.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you. Okay, so I think, I don't know if we have more, or if you want to comment any, or ask among the panels, would be good to, as you know, these sessions are quite open. And basically I think that the three of you have highlighted not good examples, but also some of these, I really like Nadine, what you were saying about the myths that around the social innovation. So maybe it would be good if you finished the examples that you were saying, because I think it's interesting and linked what Christian says, not to wait until the framework is done, but also to advance and to make the evidence through examples and through good practices. If you want, yes, if you want to add, you were commenting in your first intervention at the beginning, some of these myths around the social innovation. So you want to, because you were saying, if I have a few more times.
Okay, thanks. Now I'm thinking for the myths, yes, it's and linking to what we're saying here. Yes, there are, like Christian said, I mean, it takes time on the legal and financial framework, and in different countries, I know we've been part of different entities to make it happen. It's about leading with purpose. So leading with your initiative. So if I go back what you're referring to, Cynthia, on the myths. So leading with purpose as a social innovator, it's about solving again the problem. It's not about just giving money to the poor. So when we're talking about some of the initiative, for example, would focus on effect, or there was a question about competition. You see many in different competition with different, donor repeatedly being there, but not making it happen. So losing the sight on, where we're the lighthouse, where they're heading. I was thinking on innovation. There's so many examples, could be green, social, so we could really dive into it. What I would say is remembering you're not here to solve the effect. That's why I always recommend going to the problem tree, thinking what are the real root causes, and thinking in a system way. It's a hard exercise, but it really makes difference, even if we're not scale up. Going back to that, making sure I'm not solving the effects, because in this case, we don't need the government or the policy. It's really empowering and helps a lot, facilitates. But if I'm tackling the roots from my own competence, I can make it happen. And when we were preparing the call with Tamara and Christian, we were talking about beneficiary, thinking, okay, you're benefiting, involving serving the, let's say, disadvantaged or the people that are struggling with the problem, engaging those who can affect it, like the stakeholders. And I would say on that is making sure, because sometimes those who are paying could be the beneficiary, could be the municipality who is benefiting from the positive impact we're creating. So keeping these in mind, because as a social innovator, we can become advocate, but advocate doesn't solve the problem alone.
Yeah.
It helps to raise awareness. So yeah, these are things connected to this. I'm trying to.
Okay, we have a final question that could be also linked to this. And okay, once if this is from Rima Yadi, she's asking if you could elaborate the links between social innovations and social businesses. I mean, what is the place of profit on this process? We can have this process of the creation of the idea, how to structure, but then the profit. I mean, the profit and the sustainability of the case. When do you think it is happening? This and this link between the social innovation and the social business.
Yeah, thanks, Incha. Thanks, Reem, for the question. So, in a simple way, when we talk about social innovation, it could be as a structure, legal, it could be a business, a for-profit, or it could be a non-profit, depending on the country and the legal framework. So the social innovation is implementing the solution, and the process is to make it happen. So creating social impact in an innovative approach and making it happen. So it could be for-profit or non-profit. Again, am I serving the purpose? Am I solving the solution? And how my legal framework would serve me best, and with what's existing in the country.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, so it's more about how we drive this process. But then on the sustainability, the financial sustainability of the business, that what you're saying. So I mean, has to be. How do you think that could be the link on the?
Yeah, so for the sustainability, of course, the sustainability is making sure it is sustainable if I'm really solving a problem. It is sustainable if I'm listening to the need on the ground. It is sustainable if I'm using the abundant resources that I have and the team is competent about it, in it. And I mean, it sustains and hopefully grows, even in these hardships. I mean, I've coached many in these 2-3 years. They can sustain because of that, and getting ready to hopefully make greater impact.
Thank you, Nadine. I don't know if Christian or Tamara wants to comment about this. Yeah, a last thought.
Yeah, just to say that indeed, when it comes to profit, indeed, it's a good question, I think, because we have to ask now what we do with the profits eventually we produce with our activity. And indeed, when it is a social entrepreneurship initiative, usually the profit is, of course, used to be reinvested into the activity itself. It's not for the wealth of the so-called shareholders. So this is an important principle, because of course you have to look at earning money with with your services, with your products, knowing that you will, of course, you will be paid for your work, because we are all supporting the dignified concept, dignified work, or concept of work, no? But the eventual profits usually are reinvested into the activity, because the main purpose is to solve the problem, to solve the social problem. It's not creating wealth for people, becoming
but
rich.
it's important.
No?
What you say, not to maintain the thing. Lama, do you want to add something?
Hello, everyone. Just on that, because I just think in terms of how to distribute profits, or just on the governance bit, it also depends on the regulations of the countries that you're operating in. So depending on the laws where you're registering your social enterprise. So for example, in terms of profit distribution, obviously the principle is whatever I make is kind of recycled back into my operation. However, some regulations look at percentages of that profit that could be distributed as dividends, because again, this is with social enterprises, it is a sustainable business that should be giving you revenue to sustain not only the business but also the team and the people that are working on it. So not like any normal business where you would distribute your profit fully as dividends. With social enterprises, there are regulations of percentages that you can distribute as dividends and percentages that you need to re-put into your operation. So it also depends on the regulations under which the social enterprise is registered, just to know that. So it's not one off-the-shelf thing that you do with profits. It depends on the sector operating in, the needs of the business, and the regulations you're registered under.
Thank you, Lama. Okay, so yeah, Nadir was also putting on the chat, exactly, depending on the countries, and early morning firm services. Okay, so I think we have a wonderful session. Thank you very much to all, and we arrive into the end. But we, if you agree, we can share your presentations with the attendees. And also, I will encourage you to, if you want to join also to the platform of INVESTMED, that we are gathering there, the community of all these trainees that are participating on the project, that they start on September of 2021, and they will end till September 2022. So it's 1 year that they are participating in different cycles. So it's interesting also to catch them there. So thank you very much, Nadine Asmar, Tamara Sakhaira, Christian Bacabua, and to all our attendees. Thank you very much to be today here with us, and we expect you to join for the next seminar that will be on May. Okay, so that will be for around leadership and on businesses. Okay, thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
Lama,
very much.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cynthia and Lama.
Have a good day.
Bye.